All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back. And we are about to watch Batman Forever, and we're doing this live, and we're going to commentate about it. So I am watching this on HBO Max currently, and I'm at zero point 0.0 seconds out of the 2 hour and 1 minute and 33 seconds that this movie is. So I'm about to press play. So for those of you guys that are either watching this live or following back, press play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press play. Now, I actually really like this film. It's not, there are similarities with it with Batman and Robin, obviously, but it's not nearly to the extent of Batman and Robin in terms of its, how do I put this? In terms of its, what the hell is going on, so to speak, right? This film, like, I actually, like, when I saw this in theaters, I really love how the Warner Brothers logo actually turned into the bat symbol. And then once you got to the credits, you know, I thought the credits were cool and everything like that as a kid, but obviously they were going with a different tone. But I actually like the tone of this film, and there are a lot of really good golden nuggets in this film, despite the fact that it's kind of got mixed opinions. But overall, like in terms of changing the tone of what they did from the second film, which is something that they absolutely needed to do because the second film just got way too dark and a lot of people kind of, you know. But anyway, overall, this film has a lot of golden nuggets. And one right now, when you see Batman putting on the costume and everything, I really like the costume montage, so to speak, right? And getting his gear and all that kind of stuff. I like that. I dig it. You know, all the bat toys and stuff. It starts out immediately with Batman. Like the first thing you see in the film is Batman, which is great. The first film didn't do that. The second film didn't do that. And this film did. So that's a step, in my opinion, in the right direction, despite the fact that everything is, you know, and obviously they wanted to make the Batmobile look a lot more like a bat in terms of the ribs and everything like that. And obviously this movie, although dark, isn't quite as dark thanks to the neon coloring. And this is where Alfred is asking, see, that's the thing. You with the lines, I'll get drive through. Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you? You know, you could tell that the tone is going to be a little bit different with this one. However, with that being said, they are actually being quite serious in this film as well. There's actually a good balance between the seriousness and the non-seriousness. And I dig that about this film. I sincerely dig that about this film. Because they did it, because they managed to make it balanced, very well balanced, and I can appreciate that. And as a kid, and even as an adult, I like the colors and everything like that. And obviously now as an adult, I see this film in a slightly different light, but I obviously feel a certain way about it. And now Tommy Lee Jones in this film, even though apparently, according to a lot of the things that we've read about behind the scenes and stuff like that, apparently Tommy Lee Jones just really couldn't stand Jim Carrey for whatever stupid personal reason, right? He just couldn't stand him. However, with that being said, he's like trying to outdo Jim Carrey in his game. You know, he makes a valiant effort as time goes on with this movie, as the movie story progresses. But does he accomplish that goal? No. But with that being said, he's certainly trying his ass off, and you can tell. So yeah. I dig it for whatever it's worth. But I really like, obviously the makeup job is just absolutely like over the top, and it's not really meant to be taken too seriously. I mean, I know a lot of people were like in the theater, they were like, ugh. And this movie actually made a good amount of money in theater, and I'm sure McDonald's profited off it tremendously. Not just with the toys and everything like that, but we're talking like the Monopoly. Remember McDonald's Monopoly and stuff like that? People were just all over that. And obviously this was like a step towards what the Batman movies did, like during Adam West's time. But it didn't take that complete step like Batman and Robin did, right? It just didn't completely go off the walls. This movie still retains a lot of what makes Batman Batman, but except it was told from a less dark perspective At least that's the way I view Batman Forever. Because in my opinion, and some people may disagree with me on this. As a matter of fact, a lot of people may disagree with me on this. There's a lot of really good stuff in this film, and just like there's a lot of really bad stuff in this film, but this film actually has, like I said, some nuggets, and it is what it is. Now, Val Kilmer cast as Batman. First of all, he's got a pretty solid Batman voice. I mean, it's Val Kilmer's voice, but slightly deeper, obviously. And Val Kilmer has a natural. He's got that natural voice about him, and all he has to do is make it deeper, and that's. I personally think that's fine. He certainly fits the part of Bruce Wayne really well. And this is also, don't forget, this was also the time before actors were training for their roles, right? So this was before all that. So, we can't really give Kilmer crap for not training or bulking for the role, because back then they didn't do that, even though it was 1995 when this film came out. But nobody would train to be Batman until Christian Bale. And then after that, everybody else was pretty much training to be Batman. So, it was just the standard that was met. Like once you got into the early 2000s or whatnot, people started training for superhero roles as opposed to just putting on the suit and saying, "Hey, I'm a superhero." Again, Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face and his thugs fall for the, they think Batman is actually going to take the elevator to go all the way up. And does Batman ever take the elevator? No. He's going to use it as a distraction, of course. And this particular scene has like one of the coolest like moments, even if you pause it for a split second. And obviously Two-Face's thugs just start putting bullets in this entire elevator, obviously, which I'm sure was pretty fun for the stunt guys. And there were stunt guys. Fun fact, one of these stuntmen in one of these masks is Kane Hodder, the man who played Jason in Friday the 13th. And right there, right after he kicks all those guys to the ground, which, again, it's cool how they made it look, but it's so fake. But it was really cool to see Batman standing and all those guys are on the ground. It was a nice little shot. I particularly like that. So, and except for the nipples, the suit is actually pretty solid. I mean, and then of course a little bit of humor with one of Batman's toys as he electrocutes a guy. And then you got a cool ass Batarang that basically can hog tie people. Well, to a certain extent, it's not exactly hog tie, but close enough. So again, a good opening action scene, pretty solid enough to where Batman's taking on a bunch of thugs. And then this part right here where this guy's charging him is pretty much like I always think of it as a nod to the first film at the end, where that one guy's charging Batman, and then Batman puts him down with a gadget that he's got on the palm of his hand. And then the security guard's in the safe, and it's a trap. Couldn't say that any faster, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. But and then we get a little bit of Batman's wits in this very scene where he's trapped in the safe with this guy. We get a little bit of that. We get a little bit of that Batman wit. He ends up using the guy's hearing aid in order to hear the click, so that way he can unlock the safe from the inside. Very, very clever, obviously. It's definitely something Batman-esque. It's definitely something that Batman would do. And by the way, Tommy Lee Jones's laugh, his evil laugh as Two-Face, is actually pretty freaking good. I really like that one specifically, like right here at this point. So I really dig it. Again, when it comes to this movie, I'm very much more of an optimist, because I see that I think it's like 60-40 ratio in terms of good versus bad. Maybe even 70-30, I'm not sure. And again, I really dig this film quite a lot in terms of the fun factor. That's another thing that plays a role, but it gave us kind of like an alternate Batman type of story without being too dark, but dark enough and not too light to where it just gets laughable. Although, of course, it is a Batman film, and it is released in 1995, and it is not exactly what Tim Burton was doing, because Tim Burton's not directing this one, so obviously they're going to do something different with this one, and some of the stuff is obviously laughable, but at the same time, there's also lots of good stuff to be had here. So, and then you got the security guard basically saying, "Oh, my shoes are melting," and again in this film, I really appreciate the fact that we really got some fancy Batman toys and gadgets in this film, which was great, because Batman always seems to have an answer to almost every problem. And in this particular interpretation of Batman is he's a little bit more empathetic with like the victim. Like right here, he's like, you know, gives the guy a second. He's like, hang on. So, um, but yeah, and then this guy over here just has to hang on. And I personally wouldn't have just said hang on. I mean, if I was a director, I would have been like, okay, Batman's going to take something and tie him to the chain instead of just saying hang on. So that way the guy just stays that much more uh, safe, just in case he slips or something like that. Um, and then you get this really really cool scene where Batman's just hanging from the helicopter. Obviously, probably a lot of CG thrown into here, some green screen, but it's really cool. And one thing that I really like is with the city, you get those statues, those really big, gigantic statues that make up Gotham City. You get to see a lot of that in this film, which is great because it's a nod to Batman the animated film. And of course, you get some neon lights, but you know what? I'm not going to completely call that as a negative, and I'll tell you why. Because when you look at the games like Batman Arkham City, and then obviously Batman Arkham Knight, you see some neon lights here and there. So it's like, okay, and now I know this is like, well, it's not as neon as Batman and Robin. Okay, so this is slightly less neon, but again, I won't necessarily mark it as a positive or a negative. I just want to talk about it and just say that it's like, hey, some neon lights. Um, and I like how the fact that this is one of his guys calls him Face. He's like, "Hey, Face," and then Two Face just ends up shooting and killing one of his own guys. Go figure. So again, some definitely you know, PG-13 material right there. If there was blood all over that windshield right there, whatever you want to call it in a helicopter, yeah, um, yeah. Breakaway glass was very evident right there, but hey, the sound effects were cool and the timing was fine. It's like, hey, whatever. Suspension of disbelief. It's a Batman film. It's made in 1995. Back in 1995, it was more believable than what it is today. I assure you. I assure you. I remember this because I was around and I watched this movie all the time. I watched it on weekends all the time. I even watched it on weekdays at times as well. But like, this was one of the movies that once I got it on VHS, it was like, it was a movie that I would watch time and time again. It was a fun movie to watch. I enjoyed it quite a bit as a kid, and I was really hyped when it came out because I enjoyed it thoroughly in theaters. And right there, that shot was like in reverse, I think, where he got out of the helicopter. Like, it was the same way he went in, except it was, they reversed it, and so that way it looked like that's what he did out in terms of how he got out. So um, that's like a film school technique, I think. I think that's what they refer it to anyway. He manages to survive, even though the Statue of Liberty's face is just absolutely shredded by the helicopter. But ultimately, um, that was a nice little cool effect what they did with the Statue of Liberty. And then you get a little glimpse over here, you know, of this. Either it's a CG shot probably of Gotham City, what Gotham City looks like during sunset when the sun's about to go down, which is pretty cool actually, and it actually looks pretty damn good. I actually like this shot. The artistic side of me really likes this shot, and again, the way the camera moved and stuff like that reminds me of some of the animated series stuff, especially when you look at the opening credits of another film, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which is an animated film. So when you look at that, there's comparisons to here. And here in this scene, we are finally introduced to Jim Carrey, aka the Riddler. And I don't care who he's on screen with, it doesn't matter. In this film, whoever Jim Carrey is on screen with, he steals the scene. He's an absolute scene stealer in this film. And in the 1990s, and this is 95 here when this film was released, right? So in 1995, Jim Carrey, there was no, as far as this entire cast goes, I know Val Kilmer gets top billing, but nobody's bigger than Jim Carrey in this in at this time. Jim Carrey was the man. So even though he doesn't get top billing, he probably got paid the same amount as Val Kilmer and as much as Tommy Lee Jones, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised if between the three of them, it would cost $60 million just to have the three of them on there. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. And then with everybody else taking a smaller cut, obviously, and then you got everything else. So I don't know. I have to actually look on Google to see how much these guys got paid. But regardless, it doesn't matter. What I have to say is that Jim Carrey not only steals the show in every scene that he's in, whether he's playing Edward Nigma or whether he's in full costume as the Riddler, He absolutely steals the scene. There's Jim Carrey mannerisms in there, but at the same time, he's still playing Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. Which, in like, once I saw the scene that would come later on, to where he fully goes evil and actually kills a guy in the film, it was like the first time I ever saw Jim Carrey kill somebody on screen, and I was, because he was always a good guy, right? In every other film that I've seen him in, he was always a good guy. You know, I saw him in The Mask, I saw him in Ace Ventura, and then now I see him in this, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy actually killed somebody. So you see kind of like this other side to him, but he's still Jim Carrey and he's still hilarious. So you kind of forget about that to a certain extent. I mean, well, you don't forget about it, but it's just like, wow, I'd never seen that before. So, and then he's trying to show here about his invention and manipulating brain waves, which is something that catches Bruce Wayne's mind. And he's like, did you say manipulating brain waves? He's like, yeah. You know, so that's something that big deal. But, and one of the things that I was wondering is why they've got Bruce Wayne wearing glasses, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, it could be a fashion thing, as despite the fact they don't need it. And there's the bat logo up in the air, and he needs to get out there. So, and I like the look and everything. I think it's a red tie that he's wearing. Can't tell. Yeah, it's either a red tie or, yeah, it's basically just like the what's it called, like the Batman animated series. He's always wearing like this black suit, red tie, you know, white button shirt underneath. Pretty spot on. And of course, Jim Carrey needs an answer now. Edward Nygma needs an answer now about his invention, and he's like, I'm sorry, the answer is no. And it just raises too many questions. Tampering with people's main brains, manipulation, just raises too many questions. So so I take a swig of water here, because I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, especially since I have a lot of things to say about this film. Now this, again, he goes from you know, sad type of character that you would have empathy for, and then all of a sudden, you know, when he changes his tone like that, it's like, okay, now you're like, okay, this guy's going to go nuts. So, and then this is one of the cooler parts of the film, where he goes into his office. He kind of exits through the bottom over here in this tunnel in the chair. And you get this, he gets into this freaking, I don't even know what the hell to call it, but it transports him straight home, and it goes like over 200 miles an hour in a straight line, for the most part a straight line. It just takes him right to the Batmobile. It's pretty freaking cool. And Alfred's already there waiting. And I like in the background that you've got a whole bunch of toys and batarangs and cows and stuff that you see in the background. I like that. I like that it displays that, because ultimately that's what Batman is. He's got to have multiple suits. He's got to have multiple cows. He's got to have multiple, you know, gadgets all over the place and stuff like that. So I like the fact that it displays that. It's not, you know, in the first film, all you got was the shot of one suit, and then that's all you got. And then the second film, they took it a step further by showing you a ton of suits. And in this film, they yet take it another step further, but not only showing you more suits, but gadgets as well, which is very important in terms of Batman culture. And of course, Chase Meridian, Nicole Kidman, who I didn't talk about earlier, she's obviously the love interest of this film, and she gets a hold of the bat signal and just calls him in, because she can't resist black leather, and she can't resist him. She's been obsessed with him, even though she's a professional psychiatrist or psychologist, or like, she's like obsessed with Batman, and not just because of who he is, but and his looks and stuff like that, but she actually explains it to Bruce Wayne later on in the film when they get together. It's like, why does the man do this? So I find that very interesting. And at the same time, her character is kind of complex, and Nicole Kidman is a hell of an actress, but right here she lets out, like, her character in this film starts out like all super kind of slutty for the bat, so to speak, and then she kind of grows up to a certain extent. Kind of interesting. And by the way, this, like, before this, like, I really like how Batman was like, it's the car, right? Chicks love the car. And I like the way he said that. The people in the theater, I remember, were reacting to that. So, you like strong women? I've done my homework. That's what she says. Or do I need a skin tight vinyl and a whip? Reference to Catwoman Selena Kyle herself. So you I love little things like that in films where even if they're not shown, if they're just mentioned, I love things like that in film because Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, is a huge character in the Batman culture, and for her not to be at least, especially since she was in the previous film before this one, for her not to be mentioned, for her to at least be mentioned, is a good thing, and for her not to be mentioned would be considered a sin because characters that play that much of a role in Batman's personal story and in his life and stuff like that, I think at least need a nod because it's important to remember that this is the third film of the Batman mythology, so to speak, that was brought out in the 90s, late 80s, and then early 90s up until the late 90s. So this is the third film. So the things that actually happened in the previous film did happen. And again, Michael Keaton was actually asked to reprise his role from the second film, but he said no. He denied it. So I think one of the reasons was because of the fact that Tim Burton wasn't doing it, and I think another reason was because he read the script and it just wasn't Batman to him. At least not what he considers Batman. And of course, Jim Carrey knocks out this guy in the back of the head with the coffee pot, and he's like, "Caffeine, I'll kill ya!" And I remember people in theater again were laughing. And this was back in 1995, man. Oh man, this was, was a long ass time ago. So it's amazing how many things you remember, right? It's amazing. I was like 11 years old when I saw this film, and I actually like the effects in this to where he turns on the switch. The mind manipulating machine is working, right? You got the 3D effects going on, but when he turns it up and then you start to see the green lightning effects, I think that's really cool. Like it's the little stuff like that that makes a difference. And specifically that's like my favorite type of green, very similar to the green that's like on this microphone that I'm recording, which lights up. So, and again, this lighting effect is done really, really well. And then Jim Carrey is just doing it at everything. Like, again, like I said, he steals every scene, but not just that. He's also like completely, like you can just tell that the man is given freedom to do what he needs to do. And I'm glad that they gave it to him because Jim Carrey was essential, in my opinion, to make this movie work the way it did. He is an amazing Riddler, in my opinion, because like granted, it's like this movie was meant to be lighter hearted, right? So the darker version of the Riddler that we get in the Batman, or the darker version of the Riddler that we get in the Batman Arkham Asylum games, right? Again, uh, there are moments of comedy, but because of what the script is presenting in terms of what tone they're going for in this film, he couldn't go complete dark because it wouldn't match the rest of the film, which I understand. Everything has to fit with this piece of art, but whenever he does show it, it does work, and he can still manage to be dark and yet funny at the same time. And that's why Jim Carrey was perfectly cast, in my opinion, because he could take something serious, right? He could be doing something serious and something completely messed up, but because he's Jim Carrey and he can make it look really funny, whether it's because of the way he moves and his mannerisms, or whether it's because he actually says something that just kind of completely like takes you off guard or whatnot, right? Well, that automatically, it's like it like deludes, I don't want to say the word deludes, but it makes it lighter hearted despite the fact that it's still messed up, right? So eh, comedy and laughter is that powerful. So that's why I think he was perfectly cast for this. So, and at this point he's telling him, and he's like, you utilize your neural energy to grow smarter. And this is where the character again, for a few brief moments, really goes dark, and that's about as dark as it gets for Jim Carrey in this film, to where he actually kills this dude. Um, so and again, the lighting in this scene is really cool too. You get it taken away from the green, and then you get that blue, this light blue lighting, which I think is really cool for this film. And again, I use green for the background of this if you're watching as well, because it just fits the Riddler tone. And I used blue for Batman and Robin, so I didn't want to use the same, even though it would have matched, I didn't want to use the same tone. But over here, this guy over here goes through the window, but he's still attached to the helmet. So, and then Jim Carrey realizes this, or Riddler realizes this, and he's like, "Hang on." So for a second there, you're like, "Okay, he's not going to kill anybody," but then you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe he is." So he's like, You are fired, or should I say terminated. So, and of course, just Jim Carrey doing Jim Carrey. Surfs up Big Kahuna and nice form, but a little rough on the landing. He may have to settle for the bronze. And then, of course, he's got the maniacal laugh. It's like Jim Carrey probably laughs like 1,000 different ways in this film. And again, you see him go through this his character goes through this transformation in this film. And you see so many different versions of it in this film. It's pretty remarkable. Jim Carrey actually plays multiple people in this film. So, and then you get a little bit of a not a flashback, but a little bit of um oh, and I just noticed GNN, Gotham News or whatever, Gotham News Report. Very similar to the CNN logo, but well, at least the classic CNN logo. I'm not sure how it is now because I don't watch the news, except for I glance at it when I'm at work, but stay away from the news for obvious reasons. I prefer to laugh instead of be stressed. But anyway, so at this point right here, he made it look like an accident, and the playback video. Oh, and of course, you get the crying scene over here where Jim Carrey's like, Riddler's like, why? I just can't believe it. He was so close to me and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and as an audience member looking into this, you're just like, obviously, it's BS, but watching that kind of performance kind of just makes it kind of that much more funny if it makes any sense. He's like, the handwriting matches his. I couldn't possibly continue on here. The memories. So there's a security camera. And then it's making him look like he just fell right off. Or no, or just did it himself. Wow. Goodbye, cruel world. Blah, blah. And of course, Bruce starts thinking. See, this billionaire playboy thing is kind of very very minimalized, if at all, in this film, because it really seems like it seems like he's playing two characters in this film as opposed to three, or maybe two and a half, because there are times where you do see a little bit of that billionaire playboy, but not in the billionaire playboy way, if that makes sense. It's more of a, how do I put this? It's more of a good philanthropist sort of thing, right? It's almost like you're getting the same Bruce Wayne that Alfred's getting, except they don't know that he's Batman. He's just billionaire playboy who's in charge of Wayne Enterprises or whatnot. So that's there's not enough. Like, you don't get the three different people, right? Because you got Batman, you got Bruce Wayne as the public sees him, and then you got Bruce Wayne as the people close to him see him, the real Bruce Wayne. So it doesn't feel like it feels like two in this film. So, but again, that's the tone they're going for in this film. So, and he's got a ton of keys, man. So, and then you get this. Yeah, we're into the this really tiny apartment of Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, and you start to see all sorts of really cool gadgets and stuff. And then you see the Riddler doll, as I like to say, the life-size doll or whatnot. And yeah, pretty interesting. Question is, where is the bathroom, and it's like, where's the bathroom, and I don't know, maybe we don't get to see an exact, obviously we don't see the full extent of it, but, and then of course the classic newspaper lettering thing for the riddles, and it's like, yep, just, the classic I'm obsessed with this guy sort of thing. And I'm surprised Wayne Manor doesn't have any like cameras outside the thing, right? It's like, because you'd be able to see who dropped that off. There were cameras right there, and you should have cameras there, but nope, there are no cameras there. So again, suspension of disbelief. It's the film, so. And a nice little, I really like the way they made the question mark look and everything like that. Like everything Riddler in this film works really well. Everything from Jim Carrey's wardrobe to the lighting effects, the special effects, and all the um, just everything in general. It's all there. So I'm also noticing that Bruce Wayne is not carrying. Maybe he's carrying in his pocket. I'm not sure, or inside his. Um. So anyway, he goes to Doctor Chase, like he's going to talk to Doctor Chase Meridian, and he's hearing all sorts of noise on the inside, and she thinks, I guess he thinks that she's trying to fight off people or whatnot, or calling for help, and he slams in to see if, but obviously she's punching a bag. By the way, a bag that's brand new and she hasn't punched it all that many times because there's not any tape whatsoever on it, and it looks brand spanking new for this scene specifically. It's a good bag though. I will say that it is a good bag. It's not a cheap bag. It's not something, it's a solid bag. And I really like how easily he lifts the door up, so which just goes to show that it's obviously kind of like a prop thing. So and at this point right now, she's just asking him how she can help, and obviously he's attracted to her. And they look, both of these guys are in their prime here. Val Kilmer and Nicole Kidman, both of them are absolutely in their prime, and they just look really good together. I'm not gonna lie. So, and I really like this one over here. If you see the numbers of my face, you can't see 13 anyplace. I really love that. And she's solving them for him. She's solving them for him. So she's probably assuming that he doesn't know how to solve them or whatever. And then in the second one over here, she's thinking about how to figure it out. She's not sure, but he tells her it's a match. So it's like okay, maybe you are a little smart. And she's like, my opinion is this guy's a total wacko. Wacko, is that a technical term? Um, so at this point, it's like, yeah, Nicole Kidman is a very expressive actress, and it's kind of interesting. Like in this film, obviously for the most part, kind of obviously she's obviously attracted to this guy, but at the same time in this film, it's one of the moments in the film where she's actually playing professional and everything like that, but at the same time um there's that other side to her in this film. Again, there's you see this young kind of person um that has that adventurous side to her, but yet at the same time in this film it's displayed that she kind of decides to grow up later on. So I kind of found that interesting. But at the same time, we kind of see that we see that a lot, like in this day and age. Like if you're around people that are in their, like, let's say, if they're around a certain age and then they're like really adventurous and just kind of put themselves out there, and then at the same time it's like, and then they decide to grow up out of nowhere after maybe one thing or two happens in life, where they just decide to just grow up. So by the way, this line right here is as billionaire playboy line as it gets right here. Watch. He says, I really got to get you out of those clothes. And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, and into a black dress. Tell me, doctor, do you like the circus? So that was as billionaire Bruce Wayne playboy as you can get. That was spot on. And that's like that's about as much as we get as far as that's concerned. Again, this movie is going for a different tone, but I'm glad that they kind of gave a nod to that, because that is by definition like an example, even though it was just for a few seconds, an example of the billionaire playboy that is Bruce Wayne. That's kind of how he talks to women at times, or approaches them, something like that. Kind of like, case in point in Batman Begins, where he enters a hotel with those two women and they go swimming in that pool area or the water or whatever that was just for decoration and not for swimming, and then eventually he jumps in. So yeah, And then here we're introduced to the Flying Graysons. Basically, it's Dick Grayson, who would later on become Robin, with his mom, his dad, and his other brother. So, um, and I like how and I love how they pay homage uh, to the original Robin costume in a sense with the colors. So, and it also tells you like the inspiration behind it. So, and in this film, I am actually willing to say, and again, I know that there's people out there that are not going to necessarily agree on this, but I am willing to say that in this film, we get probably the best version of Robin that we've ever gotten on live screen. And I'll tell you why. Because he's filled with vengeance. Like, this is a pissed off Robin. This is going to end up being a Robin that wants nothing more than to kill Two-Face. That is like his number one goal, and he's absolutely like more than willing to do it, right? And he's willing to do whatever it takes to see that done, right? So this is a kid to or a young man that basically is very, very vengeful. And at the same time, you've got Batman here, Bruce Wayne, who was vengeful as well, and except the only mentor he had was Alfred, but he basically went on to do what he did, and he knows what comes with being Batman, right? So he knows the price of being Batman, and so it's like it got to a point to where Bruce like kind of no longer has a choice, to a certain extent at least, right? So, and at the same time, he's missed out so much on his life because he's Batman, right? So, and he doesn't want that for Dick, but Dick is just so, and he tells him you can't understand, and he's like, your family wasn't killed by a maniac. He's like, yes, they were. We're the same. So, so you've got Dick's point of view from the young man's point of view, right? Who has yet to make that transition. And then you've got the person who has made the transition and has had years of experience with what he's done. And it's like, I personally find that very interesting between the two. Honestly, I do. Some of the scenes in this film are absolute gold. Like, if I were to take the footage of this film and cut it and edit it a certain way or something like that, and if I had the extra stuff that they filmed on the cutting room floor, if I had access to all that, I would make the ultimate cut of this film, and it would be badass. Like, and again, I wouldn't be the only one that would be able to do this. I mean, there's editors out there way, 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 way better than me. But ultimately, it's about putting pieces together, right? So, because there are some, you can tell, like with some of the scenes that were in this film that were like some of the more golden scenes, as I like to call them, you could just tell that there's probably some really good shit that they cut, and some of them have made the deleted scenes, but I guarantee you there's more stuff that they filmed and cut that would have probably fit the film even better if the whole tone were to be different. Like, if the whole tone were to be just a little bit darker than what it is here, it would have made this film absolute gold. It would have been even better, like from a Batman standpoint. But at the same time, again, they didn't want to go too dark, which is probably why that they cut what they cut. And then Jim Carrey over here just laughing his ass off while he's seeing Two-Face just take over the circus and hold everybody hostage with a big bomb over there. And what does he want? He thinks one of the people in the crowd is Batman, and he's right. And he basically wants to, he wants to kill him. He's like, "What do you want, Harvey?" He's like, "What, Mr. Mayor? One simple thing: Batman, bruised, broken, bleeding, in a word, dead." So, yeah. And then of course there's like 2 minutes, and then Bruce gets up and he says, "Harvey, I'm Batman," like just like that, but nobody hears him, which is kind of surprising. So, but again, suspension of disbelief, and again, more suspension of disbelief in the following scenes right here, because Bruce again starts to take out a lot of the guys, right? And he does it in a fashion to where it makes you think like, okay, this guy can take care of himself. Now, granted, he's also a billionaire. He's probably received some of the best training, blah, blah, blah. But you kind of can't help but think about it a little bit, right? Batman's not showing up. And, Bruce Wayne is kicking all these guys' asses. And these guys are armed. And he's kicking their asses. But I'm glad we also see that though. At the same time, I'm also glad that we get to see Bruce Wayne without the Batman suit kicking these guys' asses because we hadn't seen that before. We didn't see that in the first film. We didn't see it in the second film, and we're seeing it in this film, which is great. Um, so and then right here, boom, this is like a dead giveaway where he's going down with that rope, and then boom, takes out two guys. That's like so freaking Batman right there. But again, it's kind of like Clark Kent Superman with the glasses thing. It's like nobody notices, even though right there it's in plain sight. Superman, Clark Kent, and Superman is basically like, in my opinion, it's like the perfect example of hiding in plain sight, so to speak. So that's what I call this scene, right? It's hiding in plain sight. And of course, Two Face over here is he took out the line that's holding those guys up, and then the Graysons start to fall. And you get a little sweep over here, and yep, they start to fall, and there's nothing that Bruce can do. Um, and yeah, big, like that moment right there, and then they zoomed up and it did a close up of Bruce's eyes. It brought him back to when he lost his parents right there. Like that's what started it all. It just reminded him of everything. And that's where this film actually shines, because not only does it kind of give you the story of Batman, but it's a necessity simply because this is also Robin's origin story, right? It's Batman's continuation. Like Batman the film is called Batman Forever because ultimately by the end of the film he decides that he wants to be Batman because he chooses to be Batman, as opposed to, I have to be Batman. It's like, no, I choose to be Batman. So that's what this film is about, and it's brought together through the origin story of Robin. And at the same time, you've got this wiser, older superhero in the form of Batman who's trying to tell this young man, like, and like, this may not be the way. This may not be the way what you want. It's not what you think. Blah blah blah. And then you've got Robin who teaches Batman something, and he's like, a man's got to go his own way, because that's what Robin's dad taught him. Is like, my dad told me that every man goes his own way. So, um, but they kind of meet somewhere in the middle. So, um, and of course he hasn't eaten, he hasn't slept. Of course, how could you? And then there's the little helmet right there, which gets upgraded in the next film with a much better, cooler helmet. But the design is the same of the Robin, which is pretty cool. Um, and then Alfred introduces himself to Robin, and then you can look at his eyes. I actually like Chris O'Donnell's acting in this quite a bit. It's like where he's being nice and everything, but you look at his eyes, he wants to take he wants to basically take out Two Face. Um, uh, he doesn't want any social interviews, no charities, no anything like that, and he basically tells him, he's like, no thanks. He's like, take it easy, Al. So, and at this point right here, I mean, all Alfred has to do is look at Bruce, and Bruce has to look at Alfred, and they can basically read each other's minds, which is great. It just goes to show you the relationship between the two. And then a little bit of a mention of Metropolis. I really like that as well. It's like, where are you going to go? The circus must be halfway to Metropolis by now. And then he's also telling him that killing Two Face isn't gonna take the pain away, and he's right. He's right. And he doesn't want his advice, doesn't want his charity, but the thing is, he doesn't know who Bruce really is, which is again an interesting part about all this. He doesn't find out until later. His curiosity kind of lets him find out. So, but at this point, Bruce is obviously, he's like, hey, can you at least fill your bike up in the garage? There's not a gas station around here for miles. And then you go in, and it's like, you got a shit ton of cars and a lot of bikes. So, and of course you got the pump and everything. So lots of classic cars with Bruce, and of course some bikes. And we're also told that Alfred's a very good mechanic, which I'm sure he is. And then of course he's got a ton of bikes, which obviously Dick is very familiar with, which kind of binds them together. And he's got some of the more rarest bikes in there. And he's like, if somebody were to fix up all these bikes, they can keep one as a fee, which which I'm sure he would love that Black Knight. And I think in the second film, I mean, in Batman and Robin, I think all those bikes get fixed because Batgirl ends up taking one of the bikes, and a lot of those needed a lot of work. So um, he's looking at those bikes, looking back at Alfred, and he's like, "Hey, Alfred, wait up!" So, and Alfred made him a damn good burger, and he had milk and everything. He had an onion ring on that burger. I'm pretty sure he's like, "Hey, Al, wait up!" So, and then of course you go through, and again, the tone of the film stays within like not too dark, but it's still a Batman movie as opposed to Batman and Robin, to where it's like, what the hell is this? So that's the thing. The movie, it does retain its identity, despite the fact that it's not the same as what we've seen in Batman and Robin. So, and again, we're taken through that flashback of Bruce's parents again. Slightly different flashback than what we got from the first film, but similar enough. And Val or Val Kilmer, he's Bruce is instantly taken back to everything. Oh, and this is when his story and Dick's story come together. And again, Alfred, although we don't see enough of Alfred in this film, um, he does, whenever he does say something, most of the time it's like it just really hits home. It just really hits home. He's, I don't know, man. It's really hard to say who my favorite character is in some of these films, but Michael Go's Alfred is like the sweetheart of an old man who's also very wise. He's the lightness in Batman's life, right? Because Batman has nobody else but Alfred. Ultimately, at the end of the day, for the most part, anybody who's been at Bruce's side has abandoned him, in one way or another. So, so he's like, "Yep, just like my parents." And this scene also, like, if you pay attention to the surroundings, in this scene, it's like it was still light outside when Bruce went in there, and then he literally stood there until it was dark outside. So, and again, he feels guilt for the death of his parents. And then here we go. We see the bat logo go up, and it's time to go out again. And the first thing he says is, he tells Alfred, he's like, "Take care of the kid." So, and in this scene right here, you can see Dick. He's sad, obviously. And again, I like this scene. So he's trying to ask him to settle in. He's like, "I won't be staying long." So he's looking at his helmet, and he's like, "Is this a Robin?" And then he tells him a story about how his brother's wire broke once, and he swung out and saved him. His dad told him that he was his hero, and he kind of flew in like a robin. And if anybody knows heroes, it's Alfred. He's like, "Yeah, you are a hero. I can tell." And then he says, "Some hero I turned out to be." And it's because, it's like he couldn't save his parents. But let's not forget, though, Dick, you did save everybody in the circus because you're the one who got rid of that bomb. Including Batman's ass. You saved Batman's ass. And then he wants to sit, and Dick asks him to throw away the costume that he wore at the circus. He's like, "Oh, throw this away, will you? I don't need it anymore." He's like, "I'll just put it here." And then here's the wise words by Alfred. He says, "Broken wings bend in time. One day Robin will fly again. I promise." So, a little bit of foreshadowing, obviously, but I think everybody saw that coming. All you have to do is look at the movie poster, and that's all you need to see. But ultimately, I really like the direction that they took Robin in here. You get to see, you get to see, like, he's ready to kill people. He's ready to kill somebody. So he's very vengeful, and it's like, that's, you don't get the corny Robin or the girly Robin or something like that. You don't get, you're getting a vengeful Robin in this film, right? So granted, he doesn't make that much of an impact in this film overall at the end, but from a story perspective, he's a big piece of this story. And then, of course, you got Two-Face out of nowhere with his rocket launcher, And of course, the Batmobile, you're actually showing that the Batmobile can do some crazy shit too. He can just go straight to the side and just turn his tires over. And as a kid, I actually liked this Batmobile. The Batmobile I thought was cool in this film. Again, the original 1989 and the first two Batmans are my absolute favorite design. Um, but yeah, the Batmobile is the Batmobile. It's cool. I mean, every single iteration of the Batmobile has always been unique in its own right. You know, some people prefer one over the other, but the original Batmobile will forever be my favorite Batmobile to this day. Until there's something that surpasses it, which I don't know if there ever will be. I mean, but the original Batmobile is awesome. I wonder if the new Flash movie, where Keaton is going to be Batman Batman in that one. I wonder if the Batmobile like has the same look, but I wonder if we see it do some really cool shit that we didn't see it do. It's like maybe he kept the look of it the same, but just upgraded the shit out of it in other ways. I think that that's what they did, but I don't know. I haven't seen the film. And then of course we see the little grapple thing that the Batmobile is about to do in this film, and of course retaining its bulletproofness, so to speak. And the Batmobile's technology on the inside actually matches the Batcave's technology on the inside with the computers and stuff like that. And in some shots over here with the Batmobile, you could tell that it's obviously like a toy, so to speak, depending on the shot. So it's like, okay. And then, of course, different camera angles to make it look a certain way. And then, uh, and I'm going to take another swig of water. Cheers, your health. And then neighbors in the apartments are just watching Batman just go up this wall in the Batmobile. And then Two Face, Harvey, Tommy Lee Jones doing his scream. And then over here we see Edward Nigma like trying to figure out his alter ego, so to speak, and it's like right there in front of his face, but it's like right there. So he's like, nah, puzzler, a gamester, Captain Kill. And he's like, oh, question mark man. And it's like, yup. And it's like the suit's right there too. I bet you, and the wardrobe. I wonder how much the wardrobe all in itself cost for this film in terms of like everything. And they kept it classic too. Like when you look at Adam West's Riddler, the gentleman that played the Riddler, I forget his name, I apologize, but the gentleman that played the Riddler in that one, it's like, again, what Jim Carrey is doing with the role in this film is like a darker version of what that gentleman did in the 1966 Batman film and series, right? And that's what Jack Nicholson did with the Joker. He did what Cesar Romero did, but he made it darker. He made it darker. I don't think Two Face was in the 1960s Batman show with Adam West. I'm not sure. I sure as hell don't remember it. I know Penguin was. I know Riddler was. I know Joker was. Um, at least not that I can remember. And this is cool how they make his place look two different ways. One half looks one way, the other half looks the other way. And he's got two different women. You got Drew Barrymore in her prime, by the way, a prime Drew Barrymore. And then you got the other woman, which I don't know her name, but all I know is that I am much more attracted to her now than I was when I was a kid. So, um, but yeah, and the camera pans back because, well, you want to see the differences between one side and the other. And then Jim Carrey makes his appearance finally as the Riddler in this scene. And he actually did some training with the cane, like some of the cool canes he's got in this film. Um, and he does a lot of tricks with the cane. So it's like, that's cool. I personally wonder if that's what he took home. Like, there's usually props and stuff like that actors take home when they do some of these roles. But it's like I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I would if I was playing Riddler, I would probably take the cane. So, and then again, this is a very classic type of Riddler look. Obviously, this is like the classic Riddler, as you know, with the costume and everything. So, um, yeah, a really good intro if you ask me. And then obviously the hair change with Jim Carrey's hair and all. So, other than the fact that Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones just didn't like Jim Carrey, I'm pretty sure a lot of people just absolutely like laughed in this film. So definitely laughed in this film, probably. Like, but the thing is also like Val Kilmer and the director Joel Schumacher didn't get along either. I don't know if it must have been creative differences or something like that. I'm not sure, but unfortunately, that's what happened with this film. But despite the fact, I mean, I can't tell that these guys don't like each other really, or that Tommy Lee Jones hates Jim Carrey, especially when it gets to the point to where where they actually like have to get along and stuff like that. And then of course, um, somehow, some way, those two machines ended up being in the film. Those little two machines that he uses for his technology here, they just happen to be there. The only way they could be possibly explained is like, yeah, he snuck in there and he already knew about the place, but he put them in there. So, and this scene is kind of funny. It's like very few people are both the summer and the winter, but you pull it off nicely. And then he just shoots a bullet in the air, and he's like, "What's the point?" Like, has anybody ever told you have a serious impulse control problem? And that's kind of funny how you see Tommy Lee Jones on. You see him from his scarred face side only. It's kind of funny. And this is kind of funny right here, where she's thinking about one cartoon and she's thinking about the other cartoon, and again, the green effects look really cool. To this day, I still like the green effects. So everybody, like, when it comes to performances in this film, everybody remembers Jim Carrey more than anybody else. It's simple as that. Jim Carrey is a standout. You can't deny that. So at this point, this is where they make a deal. He's like, "Yeah, you're going to help me steal production capital so I can put a box on every TV in town, and yeah, blah blah blah." And then he's like, "And in return, I'll help you find out who Batman is." So pretty funny. I mean, it's like, is he really going to say no? uh, he's so funny. You pose the most interesting proposition. Therefore, heads we accept, and tails we're gonna blow your head off. And of course, is it gonna be heads or tails? Of course, it's gonna be heads. So get this little scene over here where they're stealing all sorts of stuff, and they just want to steal production capital. He gets his little tiny diamond. He's like, "Here's a good one." He gets a bigger diamond. He's like, "No, there is a good one." And then watch, it would have been so funny if Mr. Freeze just showed up and he's like, "No, he is a good one." And then they got the giant diamonds that you see in the fourth film. And then you get a fancy laundry scene over here to where Robin or Dick Grayson's doing some fancy laundry and some tricks and stuff. So for 90s, that was cool. And it's like, yep, he could definitely be a superhero because um yeah, because he can do that. And then in this funny scene right here, Riddler asks Two-Face, he's like, "Show me how to punch a guy." He's like, "It's simple, my boy. Just ball up the fist, reach my back, way back, and assert yourself." And he punches a guy. He's like, "Ooh, that looks like fun. Let me try. Ball up the fist, reach your way back, assert yourself." And he hits him, and he's like, "Ow." uh, and Batman was nowhere in sight. What was he, on vacation or something like that? I don't know. But there's lots of diamonds and stuff stolen, you name it. Oh, and you get the cool shot of the fireplace in the background. I don't think the fireplace was nearly as big as it was in Batman Returns, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just the angle. And we have another Riddler trophy that looks really cool too. And of course, you get the scene in the Batcave where Bruce Wayne wears his what's it called? His what's it called? Turtleneck. The black turtleneck. Every single actor in the first four films has worn the black turtleneck. So you saw it in the first film and even the second film, and in the fourth film you see it. So, and at this point, Dick uh can't get through one of the doors. And he's like, "What do you got back there?" He's like, "Master Wayne's dead wives." Basically, something like that. Dead wires, dead wives. So, and then of course you see regular Jim Carrey, Edward Nygma, without any, like, he's like regular Jim Carrey in that scene. Oh, and of course you got a dog that's wearing the that's using the Nygma tech box. And it's like, look at them. It's like Gotham. They say that it turns the box into zombies. But it's actually kind of brilliant in terms of the story. It's like the box like gets everybody's like information from their brain and stuff like that. So it's like, and in this specific scene here, you'll see, Jim Carrey or Edward Nygma gets his, um, he's got his own headquarters now and shit like that. So, um, which again, really cool color wise, and you got the neon lights going on and stuff. It's like, okay. And it's called Nygma Tech, and it's like, can't you tell this guy's a Riddler? I mean, he says Nygma Tech, Edward Nygma, duh. Suspension of disbelief. And then of course all that juice going into his head, and I like his facial expressions here, really hilarious. Oh, and he's got that cool top on, that really cool jacket that looks cool with leather, I'm sorry, with silk and shit and shiny, looks pretty cool. And then Dick is on the third floor, and then Alfred is going to go through that door that Dick couldn't get into. So before the door closes, Dick's got to go all the way down to the first floor and get in there, and he's using his acrobatic skills in order to do so, and he barely makes it. He barely makes it, but he makes it. Like, for me, I was like, damn, this is going to be painful. Obviously the door would have been closed by now, but it's like, whatever. But he makes it. And he goes through, and he goes down he falls down the steps. Man, this is going to hurt. If somebody actually fell down that many flanks of stairs, like, oh, that would have hurt so much. And then of course there's the intruder alert is going off, and then all the gadgets and the Batmobiles start, showing up and stuff, and he knows now that Bruce is Batman. The cat is out of the bag. Alfred sees him, and he's not particularly happy, but at the end of the day, Dick still takes the Batmobile on for a ride, which as a young man you can't really blame him, because, well, yeah, if you're a young man of that age, I mean, what are you gonna mess with first? I mean, chances are it's gonna be the Batmobile, right? One of the most iconic of Batman's gadgets or technology and stuff like that. And we have yet to see everything that Batman's technology and gadgets have, really, when you think about it. We've only seen so much, but there's so much more. And if you read the graphic novels and comic books, or done even research, he's probably a lot of stuff. And at this point, Chase Meridian and Bruce are together again, except this time on more formal terms, a little bit more of a kind of like a date. And then he tells her about his past, in which she does not know. How can you not know that Bruce Wayne, one of the most famous men in the world, how can you not know of his story? Of a lot of famous people of this day, we know their stories. I mean, their basic stories and stuff like that. Like Michael Jordan, case in point, Michael Jordan. A lot of people know about his story. So it's like with Bruce Wayne, he's like the equivalent of Michael Jordan in terms of fame and all that kind of stuff. It's like, his story, but she doesn't. So, and she's telling him that that's that looks like a painting in the background. I don't think that's green screen. That's more of a set painting or whatnot. So they're still using classic techniques for the background of Gotham City, which is actually pretty interesting. And he wears a lot of like full on black stuff in this film, like nothing but black clothes. Good clothes nonetheless, and they match, but at the same time it's like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the Power Rangers in a sense, to where they all wore their own Power Rangers colors, right, whenever they weren't in their suits. And it's like, that's kind of a dead giveaway in a sense. Billy was always wearing blue, Kimberly was always wearing pink, and you know how it goes. And then Tommy started out wearing green, and then when he went to the White Ranger, he ended up wearing white. So So this is where it gets interesting. She's like, why does a man do this? Why does a man, commit himself to does he deserve a life of nightly torture? And he's like, it's more than just professional interest, isn't it, Chase? And then she's like, are you jealous? She asks him the direct question, are you jealous? He's like, no, I can't be jealous of Batman. We're all two people. Again, a dead giveaway. Come on, Bruce Wayne would not do that. Bruce Wayne would not do that right off the bat. Like, he's like, we're all two people, and he's like, dude, I can't be jealous of Batman. We're all two people. And I'm like, you're giving it away, bro. I mean, granted, she doesn't know yet until later on, but it's like he's giving it to her verbally, verbally at least. And then we have a kiss, and then the pager goes off as soon as and it's and it's an iWatch or whatever the hell it's called nowadays, whatever. And there's Alfred right there, and they're like, he's telling him about Master Dick, and this is hilarious. This scene's hilarious. He's like, he's gone traveling. He's like, he's run away. He's like, actually, no, he took the car. He's like, boosted the Jag. He's like, nope, not the Jaguar, the other car. And he's like, what, the Bentley? He's like, no, the other car. I like Alfred's facial expression. He's like, the other car, and he's like, oh shit. Like, didn't give a fuck about the Jaguar, didn't give a fuck about the Bentley, and then all of a sudden now it's like the other car, and he's like, uh-oh, which says it all, right? He's like, okay, this date is off. So, and of course you get a little bit of that Gotham life in this, like some gangsters are wearing face paint and stuff like that. Face paint that also glows in the dark, by the way. So, he's got the Batmobile. Look at that, man. And everybody, it's like, and then the gangster's like, hold up, chill, it's Batman. And he's like, no, that's not Batman. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, that's Batboy. He's like, that's not the Bat. And then the girl runs away because she was taken by some of those thugs or whatnot. And then this is where he does his thing. And then he leaves the Batmobile out just like that. There's no shields or anything, which would have been a nice nod to the first two films, especially. But nobody goes for the Batmobile. So, and then they're asking like, "Who the hell are you?" He's like, "I'm Batman." And they start laughing. He's like, "Hey, I forgot my suit. All right." All of a sudden, now the gangsters are gonna try to take him out. And then in this scene right here, it shows that Dick is a very formidable fighter. He can hold his own against a multitude of people. Again, this is obviously choreographed. It's not meant to be realistic or anything like that. But, what does the character of Batman do? He can walk in a room full of people and take them out with his skill alone. And they're basically showing that, well, Dick can do that as well, which makes him formidable, which kind of makes you root for him, obviously. And then you've got the leader of these gangs, these guys over here that try to take him out, and it doesn't work. And Dick takes him out in a couple of moves and rescues the girl. And he's like, come on. He's like, wait, doesn't Batman ever kiss the girl? And he kisses her right away and then lets her go. He's like, thanks, you saved my life. He's like, yeah, I could definitely get into this superhero gig. But that's only one side of it, kid. That's only one side of it. The whole kissing part and stuff like that, it doesn't always work like that. It's not, the majority of it isn't like that at all. And the scene that's going to follow this scene coming up when Batman shows up is going to be one of my favorite scenes in the film, if not the entire film. And we'll go into it when we get there. But yep, there's Batman right there just kind of watching. And then everybody sees that Batman's there and they just get the hell out of there. It's like he drops down into the scene and they're like every single gangster just gets the hell out of there because they know who he is and they know what he's capable of, and they leave. But Dick just starts wailing on him and, obviously just rage shots. He's like, you should have told Two-Face who you were in the circus or else my parents would still be alive. And he's like, if Bruce Wayne could have given his life to your family, he would have. So, all right, here we go. So we got the scene in the Batcave, and he's like, all I can think about is getting Two-Face. took my life. And he's like, I was out there, even when I was fighting you, the pain went away. He's like, do you understand? He's like, oh, yes, I do. He's like, I need you to help me find him. So at this point right now, he's telling him that he's willing to take a life. He's like, okay, so you're willing to take a life. He's like, as long as it's Two-Face. He's like, all right, you make the kill. This will happen this way, but your pain won't die with Harvey. It'll grow. And now he's listening this time because now that he knows he's Batman, he's listening. He's like, you're going to run into the night to find another face and another and another. And then one terrible morning you're going to wake up and realize that revenge has become your entire life and you're not even going to know why. And now he's telling him, he's like, you can't understand. Your family wasn't killed by a maniac. And he's like, yes, they were. We're the same. So he's like, if we're the same, help me. He's like, let me be your partner. He's like, no, I can't. Because he knows the price. And that's what he tells him. He's like, you still have a choice. So really good acting on Chris O'Donnell's part on that scene. And at this point, he even looks at Alfred, and Alfred looks back at him, and it's like they're both, And right now they're going to a party, which is a little reminiscent of Batman and Robin, but not as crazy. And of course, Dick is attending with the rest of them, so it's the Ritz Gotham, and of course, what Alfred wants is for Dick to have a good time along with Bruce at this party, because Edward Nygma is obviously going to unveil his new box at this and everything like that. And you see Jim Carrey, he looks like Jim Carrey, no funny thing or anything like that. It's basically like this is what I would consider, handsome Jim Carrey. Like if Jim Carrey wanted to like really look good and impress the ladies, that's what he would look like. And obviously, him and Val Kilmer in the film are at this point they're again two sides of the same coin, right? So and then Drew Barrymore's like, how come you don't look so good in that suit? And he's like, shut up, you're here to work. So they're asking Bruce about Enigma Tech stock outselling Wayne Enterprises 2-1. And he's like, how does it feel to be outdone in every way? And Bruce is like, congratulations, Edward. Great party. And nice suit. And then Chase, who are you? And then, Chase Meridian obviously stands out. But at the same time, Drew Barrymore is something. I mean, look at that. In her prime, whether she's got short hair, long hair, blonde hair, brunette, everything, and then she's looking at him, she's like, you can call me anything you want. I mean, a prime Drew Barrymore, looking at you and telling you that. But at the same time, even to this day, Drew Barrymore is still a great looking woman. He's Drew Barrymore, man. It's not gonna, but a prime Drew Barrymore is something else. So, and I actually like that they cast her as in Charlie's Angels. She does play a really good role. Like she's kind of plays almost like that tomboy, still very much a woman, but like dresses kind of like a tomboy and has that unique personality about her and stuff like that. I actually don't mind Charlie's Angels at all, the first or the second. And the second one was good too, because you got Demi Moore in the mix, but that's another film. But at this point, even Edward Nygma has the glasses just like Bruce and is imitating Bruce. So, I mean, I wonder if some people just ended up wearing glasses like that just for and look at that, when he gets rid of his guys, he gets rid of his guys. This is hilarious. When he takes them off, Like basically, Edward is being Bruce at this point. He's just trying to be like Bruce. So, and then at this point, he even takes it to another level and just asks Chase Meridian to dance, and she takes his hand. And just before the cut right there, Chase is Nicole Kidman is just laughing or whatnot. She wants to laugh because Jim Carrey's just doing Jim Carrey isms, and you can't help but laugh. And then Bruce is wondering how you turn off the machine, and she basically turns it off just like that with some glow in the dark light. And he wants to go in and check it out and see how the machine works and all that. And she basically activates it right when he goes in. She activates it because she's got a key too. And that's it. Now they're able to look into Bruce Wayne's mind. Which that wasn't done like that with the other guys. It was just something that was for Bruce, obviously. So, and at this point, the machine is asking him all sorts of questions. It's kind of doing like a brain scan or whatnot. So, yep, learning more and more about Bruce. So, and then Two Face's guys end up making a scene. They crash the party, and which wasn't in the plan, obviously. But Harvey got very impatient and basically, I mean, I'm sure the machine would have found out more about Bruce if it wasn't for the stoppage, but the machine found out enough about him. So, and at this point right now, Bruce needs to figure out how to get the hell out of there to be Batman, and luckily he does. And it's really interesting how uh how Alfred, you know, still supports, like, he supports Dick with his choice to for him wanting to do what he does. And actually, the very first scene where you see Robin, like later on when you see it, it really is a nod to the original Robin look. It's the only time when you do see him in that suit, like in that classic suit or whatnot, of what we saw when Robin was, the classic Robin from like the Adam West show or whatnot. But but again, I really like how they kind of paid homage to like a couple of the films prior, or even way before that in the 1966, because because again, in order for Batman to be where he is at this point in time, not just now, but back in 1995 when this film was made, it had to come from earlier sources. So it's basically a nod of respect to talk about those films, not just to talk about them, but to say like, hey, like, this is where we were and this is where we once were, but we're going to mention you, right? I mean, for instance, let me tell you something that I found out about Adam West. I think it was either sometime before he passed away or after he passed away. Adam West was like, he was kind of like Bruce Wayne in real life in terms of the amount of women he swayed or whatnot, right? Like, he was the real Bruce Wayne. Like, and I think I've said this before. If let's say if I was cast to be Batman, right? Obviously, you have to have the character of Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy type, and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, but one of the people that I would talk to about the character, despite whether or not the story was more related to his type of character or darker, whatever, it doesn't matter which version, I would still talk to Adam West, because Adam West, like, even though he wasn't a billionaire, he lived, like, in terms of, everything with the women and everything, he lived the billionaire playboy lifestyle, like, in the and his amazing effect that he's had on women, and on top of that, to my knowledge, he was also a total gentleman. He was a total gentleman. He managed to do it right, I guess, as far as I understand, as memory serves. So, like, that's incredible. So it's like, okay, It's like his Batman was obviously different, but it's like this guy was the Bruce Wayne. This guy was Bruce fucking Wayne, like the billionaire playboy that could sleep with multiple women if he wanted to, right? And all that kind of stuff, and just date multiple women, and for all of them just absolutely loving the guy. Um, so that would be somebody to talk to about that aspect. And I'm very sure that he would have words of wisdom to offer, even if Robert Pattinson were to talk to, like, obviously Robert Pattinson's Batman is much darker than Adam West's Batman, right? But that doesn't mean that Adam West doesn't have something to offer, um, in terms of advice and all that other stuff uh, to Robert Pattinson. I personally would have talked to everybody, to be honest with you. Granted, I had access to them. And then in this scene right here, obviously he survives the fire because of the gadget that, gives him a protective shield in his suit. And then right now he gets he gets buried under a whole bunch of, I don't know what that is, lead. And it's not looking good. And yeah, it's lead. And then of course, boom, a big forearm comes in and pulls him out. And it's Robin. And you see like classic Robin right here. You get a few glimpses of him for a few seconds, but it is classic Robin. But at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, Robin actually saved Batman's ass. So he's like, I need to name Batboy, Nightwing. Again, more nods. Because later on, when they part ways, because that's how the story of Batman and Robin goes, eventually they part ways. What happens is he becomes Nightwing. So again, lots of nods to things of the past and the future as well. How can you, like that? Again, another thing that I like about this film is the fact that it gives nods of respect to other sources of material. And at this point, of course, it's not a corny Robin. This is not a corny Robin. There's one moment where he says "Holy Rusted Metal Batman" in this film, but other than that, there's nothing really corny about this version of Robin. There really isn't. Also, when he gets his fancier suit, so to speak, right later on, it's got some nods to the past without it being corny or spandex or anything like that. And then in this scene, of course, right here between Alfred and Bruce, apparently he's in love with Chase Meridian. Okay, let's just go with it. And then of course Alfred is in full support. He's like, tell her how you feel, go to her. And then he's like, she wants Batman, not Bruce Wayne. He's like, let the lady decide. So again, wise words by the old man. Let the lady decide. And another thing is also, like every single version of Alfred we've ever seen, here's where all the versions of Alfred have in common. Like, if they could choose for Bruce to live an ordinary life and to enjoy his life and live that way, every single, like, Alfred would be in full support of that. No Alfred wants Bruce to remain as Batman. It's not what he wants for Bruce. He wants Bruce to be happy and all that kind of stuff. But Bruce is, of course, is his own man and he makes his own decisions. So, Alfred obviously stays clear away of that. But ultimately, that was like, he wants him to go to her and let the lady decide and tell her how you feel. Because it's like, because he wants him to be happy. So, and at this point right here, they share a kiss, and then she's like, I imagine this moment since I first saw you, and she's like, your body, and it's like, well, first of all, that's his suit. He doesn't look quite like that underneath, as we just saw in the shirtless scene. And at the same time, she says, I'm wishing you were somebody else. And then she realizes at this scene right here, and you can tell, she's like, I guess a girl has to grow up sometime. So she tells him this. And I give her credit because she's being a lot more honest than some women that I've known and seen. And then she's like, well, he's not you. He's not you. The man I want is not you. I hope you can understand. And this upcoming scene right here is a meme, by the way. He looks around and he's like, I understand. And then he goes to walk away. And then as he walks away, he stops and he smiles. And I remember people in the theater were laughing at that. They just laughed. Like, there it is right there. And then he just smiles. Look at that. Smiles and then jumps off. So the reason he smiles is because, well, she wanted her to like Bruce Wayne and to choose Bruce Wayne. And this is Batman's opportunity to actually live a chance to actually live a life and not be Batman. Because like he didn't have a choice before, or at least he felt like he didn't have a choice or something like that, or he felt like that he's got to be Batman, right? So now it's like, well, I have another reason to, I can focus my energy on something else. So, and again, that's why this film is called Batman Forever. And rightfully so. Because at the center of it, that's what the story is about, right? He learns that he chooses to be Batman at the end of the film, and as we find out in this scene right here, that the bad guys find out that Batman is Bruce Wayne. So, yeah, I mean that's what this film is about, choice. So it's like from this day on, Batman is no more. So, and then Robin, of course, is like telling him, he's like, you can't just quit. There's monsters out there. Batman has to protect the innocent, and he tells him, he's like, I've dedicated my life to helping strangers I've never met, faces I've never seen. And he's like, well, the innocent aren't faceless anymore. He's like, you can't tell me what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. He's like, my dad told me every man goes his own way. My way goes Two-Face. He's like, you got to help me. And he's like turning everything off in the bat. And here's another thing. Here's a cool question right here. He's like, if you do find Harvey and then you kill him, what next? And he's got no answer. And he's like, yeah, exactly. And then you'll be alone like me. See, that's the thing. He doesn't want that for him. And then Dick, of course, is like, I need a partner. I don't need a friend. It's like Two-Face got to pay. He's begging him basically at this point. And he's going to tell her everything when Chase comes to dinner. So, again, they're in completely two different stages. Like, would you have been able, like, even Alfred couldn't stop Bruce from becoming Batman. And I'm sure he attempted to when Bruce was younger, when he was at a stage where right now where Robin is. Right? So it's like, how are you expecting to stop Robin from making that transition? How are you expecting Dick Grayson to stop from making that transition into becoming Robin? You can't. You can't. You try your best and you tell him, it's like, but it's at a point to where it's like, you literally can't. He takes the suit and he's got the bike. And he's going away now. So, and Bruce wants to tell her something. She wants to tell him something. And by the way, it's when you grow up, it's not too different than what it is when you're a kid in terms of like when you tell somebody that you like them and stuff like that. The only difference is your experience. So therefore, the way you communicate is better. And the way you respond to things is better because you've been through it before. You've got a little bit of experience under your belt. But one thing I want to say is that whether you're like a teenager going through this for the first time with somebody, or whether you're an adult, the only difference is, I mean, you're still a kid at heart. You always will be, right? But at the same time, what makes that difference is the experience, and you know yourself better from that experience. So therefore, you have answers, and the way you react would be a little bit different, or some things may not be as surprising, so to speak, right? So just kind of wanted to add that in because that was a very interesting scene right there, to where he wanted to tell her something, she wanted to tell him something, and they kind of stopped for a second and kind of had a laugh, and he's like, go ahead, you go first. So I thought that was kind of a cute scene, but and at the same time, even as an adult, right, even as an adult, like, you don't, as a kid at best, if you're lucky, you're gonna know puppy love, right? That you're gonna think that that's love, but it's not. But at the same time, what do I know? But the thing is, puppy love and real love, I know, are completely different things. They do have their similarities, they do have their heartaches and stuff like that, I get it, but again, it's quite different. It's I don't know how else to explain it. It's one of those things you can't really explain in words, but if you're of a certain age, you'll know what I mean. You know, it's like I've said this many times before. If I could go back to when I was 18 years old, one of the first things that I would do is slap myself in the face. But at the same time, I think a lot of people feel that way. But anyway, at this point right now, Bruce is having flashbacks because of the flowers that were dropped that immediately reminded him of his parents. And now he wants to tell her something that he's never told anybody, and she's there for him. She's like 100% there for him. She's obviously 100% like in support of him. Like she genuinely cares about him, and you can tell. And at this point, Bruce is literally like explaining like everything to her in terms of when he was a kid, and then about the red journal that his dad used to write in, and uh, he's not going to write in it anymore. And yeah, so at that point, it's like as a kid, he knew that his life wouldn't be the same, and things just changed. So and that's when he ran into, like, when he went and he took the journal and he ran, you know, he was out there into the storm and the rain, and he falls into the bat cave. And there was, you know, that's when he saw the bat for the first time. And that's when things started to change. And but this is the first time he's telling this to anybody. This is the first time he's ever telling, uh like, he's not telling this to anybody. So it's a giant bat too. It's not a small one. So it's a giant bat, and it's going right towards him. And at this point, these words are really powerful, because he would use this image that he sees to strike terror into the hearts of those who did evil. So whatever happened to me would never happen to anybody else again. And at the same time, he'd have his revenge. So he's getting so basically the Batman story is of Batman getting revenge without killing anybody. And then she's telling, asking him, like, what are you telling me, Bruce? And she's like, Chase, he didn't tell her anything. But and then they share a kiss, and then it goes into a deeper kiss. And then just like the very end of the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, she knows. Like, now she knows through that kiss. She's like, yep, you're Batman. He didn't even have to say I'm Batman. She just had to kiss him, and then that was it. Like, obviously they kiss the same way. She's like, you're Batman. So she's smiling about it because, wow, she gets to have both. Both of the people that I liked are like, they're the same guy. And then poor Alfred takes a hit over here. I remember a friend of mine was watching this, and he laughed his butt off when, Alfred got hit with the cane and just went down. Um, and at this scene is very interesting because, um, we see something happen that we haven't seen before, which was kind of heartbreaking to me as a kid. Um, Enigma breaks into the Batcave and absolutely destroys everything with these really cool Riddler grenades or whatnot that look like green bats that are grenades that explode, basically. And the car gets destroyed, the cave gets destroyed, all but some parts. But yeah, so. And I wonder if there's somebody out there that actually has built this Batcave for their house, like this version of the Batcave. No, possibly, could be. And of course, the Batmobile. And I think they built 3 of them for this film, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, one of them gets destroyed. And of course, the old coin. Harvey has to abide by the rules of his coin. As long as he keeps on flipping tails, it's not going to happen. He has to flip heads in order to do something that he wants to do that may not be right. Yep. And one by one, Riddler just ends up using these little grenades, and just destroying one thing after the other. And Chase Meridian gets a nice little nice little punch on one of these guys. Oh, I'm sorry. If it's heads, he can't do anything. It's got to be tails. I'm telling you, this scene over here, Jim Carrey must have had a blast filming this scene to where he destroys the Batcave. But at the same time, if he's a Batman fan, it's kind of heartbreaking because it's like my character's actually destroying one of the most iconic pieces of lore. But it is what it is. And then he puts the rest of the grenades inside the car, and boom! Wow. Yep. So, and again, more tricks with the cane, with which Jim Carrey did a lot of work with the cane outside of filming, which was cool because it's shown in the film, and he became very natural at it. I'm very muscle memory is permanent, so I'm very sure that he's able to do it to this day. Give him a cane, he can do some cool tricks with it, and I'm pretty sure he took some of those fancy canes home. And over here, does Bruce Wayne get shot in the head but actually survive, or does it just nick the side of his head? I mean, it's probably just a nick. It probably just scratches him, but it knocks him out though. It's like, how did that work? You know. And over here, Two Face has a chance to kill him, but Riddler says, "No, don't kill him." He's like, "If you kill him, he won't learn nothing." So, and then they have one last riddle. So, so they take Chase and they leave him there. See, that's one of the things. That's one of the things with Batman. He's like, you cannot, like, if you give Batman just a little bit of squeezing room or whatnot, or just a little bit of room to get out, it's like he's gonna get out. And you don't really have the chance to take on to get rid of someone like Batman very often at all. It's very rare. So it is what it is. It's, again, movie, suspension of disbelief, that sort of thing. And you get a nice little scene over here, and Alfred basically says, "How are you, young man?" He's like, "You haven't called me that for a long time." He's like, "Old habits die hard." He's like, "Are you all right?" And he tells him, he's like, "They've taken Dr. Meridian. Master Dick has run away. The cave has been destroyed, and there's another riddle." So you're basically waking up to some insane news, but one step at a time, they solve stuff. So again, we're taken back to Riddler's place, which I love the set for this. Like all the different sets that they've done with this, with the green neon lights and then the question marks all over the place, and then the Riddler couch, which which Nicole Kidman's lying on, and then of course that jacket right there with the glowing lights and shit like that. It's like, wow. Like, I wonder how expensive that is. And I wonder if it's like super warm and super hot too, because it's like, well, I mean, there's lights. So, and then of course you get the big question mark that's above the bat logo in the sky, which is actually pretty cool. Um, Lots of nods to that. I love, I love what they did with that. And then over here we get to see Bruce and Alfred basically solving they have all the riddles in front of them, and they're trying to put it together. And Alfred actually puts the pieces together, and then Bruce kind of solves it. Um, so we're looking at vowels, and then it's like, what do clock, a match, chess poems, and vowels have a common? What does it mean? It's like, okay, every riddle has a number in the question, and they arrive in this order: 13, 1, 8, and 5. So it's like, perhaps, what do they mean? It's like perhaps letters of the alphabet. It's got to be, right. So it's like 13 is M. So I would be A, 8 would be H, and 5 would be E. M-A-H-E. He's like, wait, what if 1 and 8 were 18? And he's like, 18 is R. M-R-E. He's like, okay, how about Mr. E? He's like, which is mystery. And he's like, what's another name for mystery? Enigma. Mr. Enigma. Edward Nigma. So thankfully everything in the Bat Cave didn't get destroyed. There was a whole bunch of prototypes and modifications to one of the suits. So sonar modifications, go figure. And it's like, yep, tonight's a good night to use it. It's like, it's all you got, man. And it's a badass looking symbol too. I like it. And I don't think this one has nipples on it either. I honestly don't think this version of the bat suit has this one here has nipples, which is pretty cool. Or does it? I don't know. I'm trying to look close enough, but I don't think so. And then he's got the bat boat by sea, and then he's got the bat wing. The bat wing looks pretty cool in this film. And then, of course, Robin comes in for the first time in full suit, and he's like, why not both? And nods to the original in terms of color, as well as the cape. You've got the outside, which is black, and the inside is yellow. So, which Alfred's completely like helped him design, and he took the liberty. And it's Robin. So, and he tells me, he's like, I can't promise I won't get rid of Harvey. And he's like, hey, man's got to go his own way. Man taught me that. And then they do the famous shaking hands. He's like, partners. So they shake hands. So again, a little bit cheesy, a little bit corny, but hey, it's cool. I mean, remember, back in the 90s, it wasn't as corny. It was badass. So it's all good. So, but again, it's one of those, iconic scenes. It meant something back in the day, and even now, all these years later, I still appreciate it. Obviously, I can tell the corniness and all that stuff, but and another nod to the first film, by the way, where you see the Batwing kind of go over the moon. It's not quite as iconic as the first film, and the angle is a little bit different, but it is a nod to the first film. And then, of course, Commissioner Gordon's telling the other cop to shut down the bat symbol, and he's like, wait a minute, I hear something. And then a cool little scene right here. Batman kind of goes through the symbol with the Batwing, and it kind of turns from green to regular color again. So he gives a little thumbs up, and he's like, yep, ready to go. And Commissioner Gordon is just all happy to see Batman. But nobody knows of Robin yet, so. Again, I love the special effects with Riddler's place. And here we go. We got a huge Riddler themed battleship play set over here, which is pretty badass. And again, I'm sure somebody has something. If you like playing Battleship, I'm sure it's like that's pretty cool. And we also mentioned that B12 is Riddler's favorite vitamin. B12. Oh, my favorite vitamin, I might add. So. One of the bombs go out, and then Robin goes for ejection right away, which is good. But he ejected, thank goodness. I mean, can you imagine going into your first adventure as the Cape Crusader's partner? You barely do anything, but yeah. And of course, there just happen to be bad guys underwater. That's interesting. But Batman is picked up on it. You can see that Robin is definitely outnumbered. And another cool thing about this is like that big ass, like, look at that. Like, he's able to, wow. That big ass Riddler building is actually able to, like, it's a big Nigmatech box basically, and it's able to fire juice right at the Batwing and take it down. And that's cool. He can turn that's another cool thing. He can turn the Batwing into like this little submarine, which is pretty nice. Again, lots of nods to what they can do with toys in this film. And then he can hit the eject button, just kind of fly out there and put the bad guys in a net, which is interesting. And I like the fact that you get to see different angles of the whole Nigma Tech giant box headquarters sort of thing. And I'm glad I used the green background for my thing in this one. It's perfect. It just matches the rest of the theme so well. And then that's as corny as we get Robin C. Like, it's holy rusted metal Batman. It's all holes, you know, holy. So, and then that's it. Like that's the only corniness that you get to see. Like, just one nod to the old school Robin or whatnot, and that's it. That's it. That's as corny as it gets, but that's all you get. Again, I'm glad that they decided not to make it that corny. I mean, they didn't even do that in the second film, which is great. So, or in the fourth film. So, but the rest of the fourth film was something else. So, you guys will eventually like. I think I did it live last time, didn't I? But even if I didn't, it's you'll probably see it or hear it. I wonder how many question marks there are in this film. Seriously, like every single time I'm looking at all this stuff, I'm seeing so many question marks as Batman kind of finds an entrance through the bottom, through a door that he has to climb all the way up this tunnel. And of course, here's the scene where Robin goes face to face with Two-Face and he's kicking his ass. Like he's finally getting what he wants. Nice little headbutt to finish it off. And you get a little bit of an iconic pose right there with Robin in the suit and the lightning in the background, and basically Two-Face is hanging on for dear life right now at this point with those rocks that Robin just sent him over the edge. And Batman's got his own troubles to deal with as he climbs up on the thing over here. So, but but yeah, at this point Robin's got a choice. He can kick Harvey right off. You know, at this point he can get his revenge if he wants to. So Harvey's like, "I'll see you in hell," and then Robin just offers to help him up, and he's like, "I'd rather see you in jail." So, and he helps him up. He's like, "Good boy. The bat has taught you very well. Noble, stupid but noble." And at this point, he had another gun in his pocket and just points it right at him. So, yep. But the thing is, ultimately, Bruce is like, from that scene alone, you realize that Bruce's message got through to him, right? It got through to him. So he's still Robin, but he hasn't killed anybody yet or anything like that, or doesn't kill. And the thing is, like, Batman ultimately like just doesn't kill, even though he has and he does in this film. But you get the point. So, and here's the main event, so to speak, to where Batman finally makes it all the way up, and Jim Carrey as Riddler's got crazy hair this time, and he's got like the outfit that's like kind of like white with glitter and with the green question marks all over it, which again matches. Again, you get his wardrobe in this film is off the hooks, like off the chain. And again, in this scene, again, there's just a few things that what's his name, Tommy Lee Jones does that absolutely positively just makes it like he's trying to outdo Jim Carrey, but again, with the hair and everything else, Jim Carrey just nails it out of the park in this film. And it makes sense. His plan makes sense. He's like, all these guys are feeding, and he's got another cane too, a brand new cane which we haven't seen with like the skull on it, which is pretty cool. I remember some of the kids in my neighborhood when we watched this film together, they really liked that thing. They're like, "I want that." So, he tells him, "I've seen your mind free. Can Bruce Wayne and Batman ever truly coexist? We'll find out today." But yeah, let's meet our contestants behind curtain number 1. And of course, Drew Barrymore making her reappearance again. This is the last we see of her, but anyway. And of course, we found that, Chase Meridian's trapped, and now she's in this little tube and tied up. And then, of course, you got Robin on the other side, who's tied up as well. And he knows everything about her thanks to the Enigma Tech box. Behind curtain number 2, very interesting about things about Robin that are told in this. He's like, Fat Man's one and only partner. This acrobat turned orphan like Saturday morning cartoons and dreams one day being bare naked with a girl. Okay, so I guess he's a virgin. And then at this point right here, he's like, my personal favorite below his contestants, we got a watery grave. So he's making it look like a like a talk show host, which is pretty cool. He's like, which one is it going to be, Batman? Is it going to be Bruce's love or the Dark Knight's junior partner? So he's like, there's no way for me to save them or myself. This is one giant death trap. So he's like, judges, I'm sorry, your answer must be in the form of a question, but thank you for playing. He's like, wait, I got a riddle for you. And that's something that the Riddler can't resist. He's like, really? Tell me. It's a simple one, but he can't resist it, and he's stalling for what he's planning to do. Like, I see what I see. To me, darkness is as clear as daylight. Or I see without seeing. Darkness to me is clear as daylight. And he's like, please, you're as blind as a bat. He's like, exactly. So he's got this really cool batarang looking thing, and kind of like a boomerang, I guess. And then he just throws it at the power source, which is at the top of the center of the room, which makes everything go crazy. And apparently it makes everything blow up. So that whole thing was powered by that, and it's like now everything blows up. Now the colors are going all crazy, and then Edward Nygma's head just, whoa. That source of energy is on his head, but he still manages to press the button twice on his cane. And they drop. So Batman's got to save both of them now at this point. And he manages to get Chase. Now he's got to go after Robin, in which he manages to kind of get loose by going between the legs to get his arms up. And saves Robin just in time before he falls onto the mess, so to speak, as I like to put it. So yeah, a little bit of now he saved his life. So it's like now they're even. And a little bit of a smile in the bat suit, which you see twice in this film. First one was better though. Yeah, but Two-Face still made it. And how did he get down there so fast after all that fall? Or did they go all the way back up again? I don't know. And this is a scene where we see Batman kill. So he's telling him, he's like, aren't you forgetting something, Harvey? Your coin. He's like, you're always of two minds about everything. So he just so happens to have a shit ton of coins in his bat suit. Conveniently. And then he goes to flip it, and Batman throws up a whole bunch of coins up there to just confuse the shit out of him. And he can't choose which one to get, which causes him to slip and fall over the edge. Okay, I guess they did go all the way up. And Robin's looking down. And Heads confirms that Two-Face is done. and he's satisfied basically at this point. So Bruce kind of did it for him, but at the same time, he still got the satisfaction of seeing Two-Face go. So there's that. And then Jim Carrey's head at this point, Riddler's head, is kind of melted in a sense to a certain extent. His hair's all over the place because of all that juice that went in his head, I guess. And he's asking that question. He's like, "Why can't I kill you?" He's like, "So many questions, too many questions." So he's like, "Poor Edward, I had to save them both." So he's like, "I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman, not because I have to be, but now because I choose to be." So hence, that's why this is called Batman Forever. So, and at this point, he sees him as a giant bat. So he sees Bruce as a giant bat at this point. So, and we cut to Arkham Asylum, which is the first time we see Arkham Asylum, I believe. Like by the time we get to the third film, which is this film, it's the first time we see Arkham Asylum. We see it from the outside, and we see very little of the inside. So, and the one guy's telling Chase Meridian, he's like, "Edward Nygma has been screaming for hours that he knows the true identity of Batman." So Chase goes to talk to Edward, which is going to be one of the funniest scenes, if not the funniest scene in the film for me personally. So she's like, there's nobody, there's nobody in that room apparently, but he's somewhere. He's like, "Who is it?" He's like, "It's Dr. Meridian, Chase." Like, "Do you remember me?" And he's like, "How can I forget?" He's like, "Dr. Burton tells me you know who Batman is." And then he's like, "I can't tell you unless you say please." And then she's like, "Edward, please, who is Batman?" And then he pops up out of nowhere and he's like, "I'm Batman." And he created wings from with his oh my gosh. And then he starts just laughing left and right. But that was, I'm sorry, but I just found that to be hilarious. I don't know how many people laughed at the theater. I don't remember, but I was like, wow. I remember laughing. I was like, my goodness. I just thought that was funny. But at the end, it's like he's totally a wacko at this point. So your secret is safe. He's definitely a wacko. So he gives Chase back this little doll that she gave him that represented protecting you from bad dreams, and he thanks her. He says, "Thank you for giving me a new dream." And of course they share a big ass kiss, and then Alfred of course is like smiling all about it. And then she just looks at him and tells him, "Don't work too late." And there's a little smirk. I would have loved to have known what happened between him and Chase, to be honest. It would have been interesting to see her in the fourth film instead of just a chick, Julie Madison or whatever. And then you get a cool little iconic slow motion run that goes towards the screen with the Bat logo in the back of Batman and Batman and Robin running towards the screen until you fade to black. So like as silhouettes. So and that, which symbolizes the end of the film. And there go the end credits. Now, or start the end credits. And I have to say, this film was a very enjoyable film for what it was. And again, they went like 60-40 or 70-30 in terms of like, darkness to light or whatever it is. But this film wasn't nearly as corny or as cheesy or as all over the place like Batman and Robin was. And it really, and like I said before, I also enjoyed the soundtrack in this film, but I also liked, what was it, the nods to like all the source material and all the different things that they gave a nod to in the previous films and stuff like that. So for me, Batman Forever was a pretty decent Batman film. I mean, it was very different. It wasn't like the origins of what we originally saw. It's a little bit far, but at the same time there's enough nods to where it's like you can't, how do I put this, you can't say too many bad things about the film. There's just too many gems in this film, in my opinion. So But with that being said, you know, obviously there's a few things they could have done better. But with the time, when you go back in time, where I was in 1995 when this film came out, it hit all the right places. You know, from like obviously from like what a true Batman story is in terms of the looks and stuff like that. It was a little off, but they still gave us something good in this film. And looking at it now as an adult and seeing things that I didn't see or perceive in a different way than I did when I was a kid, I actually appreciate this film even more now because I enjoy it the same way I did when I was a kid, but I know a lot more now than I did when I was a kid. So therefore, I'm actually getting more out of this film as from watching it now as opposed to when I did when I was a kid. So, and I appreciate that. I appreciate every second of it. And even when it comes to the soundtrack, I love the soundtrack of this film. And all the little nods and stuff like that, and what they gave us. And I actually like the fact that it was different, but it wasn't so different that it just stayed off of it. Just, you know, it stayed close enough to its origin to where, for me personally, as a Batman fan, for me, it was acceptable. Would I consider it like a top 2 or top 3 Batman film? Probably not, but it's somewhere in the middle for me, and it's a film that I could definitely watch and enjoy and respect overall. As an overall product, you know, could there have been a couple of things that they would have done better? Oh yeah. Again, if they there's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor, obviously, right? And if they took the deleted scenes that we know about, and plus all the other stuff from the cutting room floor that we don't know about and we haven't seen, and put it together with the best parts of this film, and take away a lot of the stuff that really didn't need to be in this film, I think you'd have a damn good Batman film with like a little bit of a neon color vibe to it, in my personal opinion. Because in my opinion, the cast was solid overall for what it was. And again, don't forget, this was 1995 standards, right? So you put everything together. I mean, it's got a lot of gems, a lot of golden nuggets in there that, you know, if it was put together slightly differently, and if the pieces were put a little bit differently together, and if the vision was a little bit different, it would have been like really solid. It would have been awesome. But for me, it's still pretty decent. So anyway, we're pretty much done with the film. The credits are about to end right now. I enjoyed this film. It's like a guilty pleasure, but I'm not so guilty for enjoying this film. I don't feel very guilty for enjoying this film, as I just discussed. So anyway, I am going to end the commentary here in the stream. Thank you very much for joining me or watching me. And if you do watch later on in the VODs or whatever it is, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It's always a pleasure, and I will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.